Good morning from Taylor and Associates Counselling Services. Today I have decided to make a video to cover what to expect when you first come to a first counselling session. For many of us, we've accessed counselling before, so we do know what to expect. But for those who haven't, I thought this might be quite a useful thing to help you to sort of set your expectations. So for your first session, obviously you've already rang up and booked an appointment, had a quick chat with your potential counsellor. For your first session, you can expect to cover quite a bit of work, but usually it's quite an information gathering exercise. So first of all, you can expect your counsellor to cover some form of contract. Now, what I mean by contract is it's an agreement between the counsellor and yourself as to what you can expect to receive from your counsellor and what your counsellor can expect from you. This basically protects people with regards to confidentiality. Any counsellor should be an ethical one and should have some kind of boundaries in place. So when I say boundaries, what I mean by that, so say for example, you were out shopping with your wife or your husband or your family members, and those family members didn't know that you were in counselling. If you were to bump into your counsellor in the shops, don't be surprised if your counsellor doesn't acknowledge you. This isn't meant in an unfriendly manner. This is just to protect your privacy, but also to protect the privacy of your counsellor. Confidentiality wise, what you should be looking for is somebody who provides a safe space for you, who informs you as to how any data they collect is preserved in a safe fashion. So say for example it's collected and kept on a computer, it should be kept in a locked file so that it's nice and secure. As regards regulations which cover our work, so we've got things such as the Equality Act, we've also got the General Data Protection Act, and people should be following safeguarding procedures. Don't be afraid to ask a counsellor to have a look at what their policies are, because this is an important element for you to be able to trust and decide that you're going ahead with the correct person for you. As regards to the kind of data that we would capture about you, basically it can be very basic. It's home address, your emergency contact number and who that is, where they live. I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. Also, we ask for GP details as well. The reason that we ask for an emergency contact number and your doctor's details is will be mentioned at your contracting stage. However, we take these in the case of an emergency. So if you are feeling extremely unwell with your mental health and you're feeling at risk, this is one of the times where we'll have like a clause in our contract where we can break confidentiality in order to protect your welfare or the welfare of somebody else. Obviously all of this stuff would be gone over in more detail at the time of your first appointment. Another thing to consider is, how does your counsellor work? So for example, I'm a person-centred counsellor, which basically means that, well, the original description of it was client-centred, which was penned by Carl Ransom Rogers many years ago. However, it's sort of morphed into person-centred therapy. So basically what that means is that yourself as the client are at the centre of the way forward, if you like. It is my job to provide a safe therapeutic space in which you feel comfortable to share whatever your issues might be. You might come across different types of counsellors. So you might come across CBT counsellors, which is cognitive, which I can never say, behavioural therapy, which it's a different theory basically, and it bases on sort of combating negative thoughts and various other task based. It's sort of kind of solution focused, if you like. So those literally are just two. There's a lot of different kinds of therapists out there. I would suggest that you read up on what you feel is wrong with you, and do a little bit of research as well. It might be that you have a conversation with myself and you decide that that's not the way you feel you need to go, in which case I can help you to try and find the right fit for you, or there are other alternatives out there, and it's easy to find on the internet. What I would say is ensure that the counsellor that you do choose adheres to ethical guidelines, just to ensure your peace of mind. Another thing that would be covered in first sessions would be the length of your sessions. So normally I work by what we call a counselling hour, which is a 50-minute session, and that gives me 10 minutes in between sessions to then make a couple of notes, grab a cuppa, refresh my mind for the next person coming along. You should be informed about when how often sessions will happen. Usually that's on a weekly basis, preferably on the same day and time per week. The reason we do this is because it gives you a week in between to process what it is you've told us, for yourself. Sometimes sessions go pretty deep and people surprise themselves, so it's a kind of opportunity for you to be kind to yourself and try and come to terms with what it is you've been speaking about. Another thing that should be covered is how much your sessions will cost. These should, in my opinion, should be upfront, should be the first thing that people can see, so they can decide whether they can afford to go ahead with it or not. There's nothing to hide. So obviously, to me, that's a big element as to how I would go and choose a counsellor too. It's a factor for people. I understand that not everybody is a multi-millionaire and can afford £100 an hour counsellor. Life doesn't work like that. Also, your counsellor should be covering when they expect those payments to be made. Generally, I like to say sort of before the session. However, each counsellor might work in a different way. You should also be given a cancellation policy. So, say for example, you change your mind and you would like to see your counsellor on Thursday instead of Wednesday, but you don't tell them till Wednesday morning. You could probably expect to find that session is fully chargeable, because at that late notice your counsellor is unable to fill that slot at that time. So don't be offended if your counsellor does ask you for that. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to say about this was you can expect to have a kind of a small history taken. So, it might be, what's brought you into counselling at this particular time, what your symptoms have been, what your thoughts have been. If you're willing to explore your history from, you know, childhood, what's happened to you in your life. I appreciate it's a lot to cover, but not only does it help you to ensure that you've found the correct counsellor, but it also helps your counsellor to help you effectively. So say, for example, somebody comes to me and what has happened to them has also happened to me. That could be seen as a bit of a triggering thing to do. It would not be ethical necessarily if I hadn't sorted myself out to then say, yeah, I can work with you, yeah, that's no problem, and then the whole time I'm not really listening to you. So, you know, it's a two-way street. It's a therapeutic relationship. It's a big decision, and I would say make it carefully, make it wisely. Don't be scared to ask questions. Any counsellor worth of salt is going to answer you honestly, and will not be offended if we are not for you. So thank you for watching. I hope everybody is well and safe, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you.